Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 5 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs, references to the books, WTF moments, so we will break it all down. Now that we made it into the back half of the season, they're finally starting to escalate a little bit more and pay off some of the long-running arcs and character endings. The episode title was Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken, which is a reference to the words of House Martell in the Dornish. In the episode, Ormund Hightower uses Merry Martell in their ability to withstand Aegon's conquest is an example for their fight against the Blacks during the dance in present day. Also giving her a lot of backhanded compliments too, like he admires Merry Martell. She was amazing, but also very, very ugly, like at the same time talking about how terrible she was, which is also interesting because they draw a parallel between him and Merry Martell both doing terrible, horrible things to try and win the war, in how he didn't care whether or not she was good or bad, only that she won at her goal, and that's all he cares about. Now, he doesn't care about any of the underhanded or terrible things that they do, only that they beat the Blacks, only that they beat Rhaenyra. During the intro, they made a couple changes. They got rid of the scene of Rhaenyra meeting Torrhen Manderly and replaced it with the new scene of the tapestry tearing with two different people on each side of the tear, leading to represent the Blacks and the Greens Dance of the Dragon Civil War, tearing the realm apart metaphorically. During the opening scene, the Rivermen and the Winter Wolves are at camp arguing how to reach Tumbleton faster now that the bridge over the river they were going to cross has been destroyed, because Criston Cole's men have been doing their guerrilla tactics, trying to basically slow them down as much as possible, and so far Criston Cole has been successful. Oscar Tully mentions using the bridge at Stony Sept, so that becomes a big target in the episode, them both trying to make it there first. It's a walled town in the Riverlands, and he controls the Riverlands. When he says they're going to be delayed up to a week, that basically means they reach Tumbleton towards the end of episode 6, probably, maybe like the beginning of episode 7. Both Roderick, Dustin, and Oscar Tully really hate Criston Cole, which they talk about at length. They both want to kill him. While this is going on, Speak of the Devil also sneaks into the Rivermen's camp, trying to kill as many people as possible, as fast as possible, create as much chaos as possible, before anticipating their move to make it for Stony Sept and try to beat them there. So this is just them showing you that Criston Cole is at least successful a little bit at first. But remember, they have 20 times the men that Criston Cole has. So this is just like a tiny little fraction of people that they're able to affect here. So they're not really hurting the Rivermen that much yet. At this point, Gwaine Hightower is still with them, and it still seems like he's kind of on board with Criston Cole's plan, but throughout the episode, he keeps trying to get him to leave to join the rest of the Greens at Tumbleton. Like, hey, how about we also go now to Tumbleton? Why don't we stop doing this and go to Tumbleton? Tumbleton, 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 over and over again. Then we finally go back to Harrenhal, and just like before, the goat precedes Alys Rivers, showing up, surprising some mercenaries, kind of like Batman just appearing out of nowhere, who claim they're there to find Aemond because of Rhaenyra's bounty on his head. Rhaenyra has promised Harrenhal to anybody that can bring her Aemond's head. Alys Rivers also notes that there have been several different bands of men who come trying to do the same thing. So a couple weeks have gone by. They just want to let you know about the little time jump. Like, there have been a bunch of bands of mercenaries trying to do the same thing. As we also see later in the episode, even more bands come to try and find Aemond. She lies to them about Aemond being there, but also reminds them about the ghosts who live there, the laborers who built the castle for Harrenhal before Aegon's conquest. The castle itself finished construction right as Aegon's conquest was happening. Like, literally right after they finished, like, boom, last brick is laid, Aegon burns the place, and the Curse of Harrenhal begins. Although, the way Alys Rivers tells it, the Curse of Harrenhal actually started before this, during construction, because of all the people that Harrenhal got killed trying to make it in the first place, and it took a long time to actually make it, creating a whole morass of negative magical energy, just like a lot of bad juju happening around Harrenhal in general.
Her founding stones were watered with the blood of men.
She also genders the castle female, saying that she swallows the greedy, the heedless, which is meant to be a reference to the actual Curse of Harrenhal, like I said, implying that it started before Aegon burned it with Balerion the Black Dread. The whole idea with the Curse of Harrenhal is that anybody who holds the castle befalls some terrible fate, like just in different types of ways, bad things will happen to you, so you actually don't want to be given Harrenhal. Then they make it seem like she actually casts a spell or is able to call birds and bats on them with a big gust of wind, but it also might just be timing, it might just be a practical effect, and her making it seem like it's magic. Then, as we all predicted, Aemond is having his own Weirwood nightmare vision, just like Daemon, same basic vibes, kind of plays out the same way too, where you see him in bed having a nightmare and not really understanding what's happening. We'll probably see more of this over the next couple of episodes. This Weirwood vision is all about the events at the Battle of Rook's Rest and how he burned Aegon and almost killed him. He hears Aegon's maniacal laughter, which I actually think is meant to be samples of his actual audio, like Aegon's actual laughter, when they found him in the pleasure den during Season 2, engaging in some light mommy play with his favorite girl. The whole idea with Aemond is that he has a mommy kink, so his favorite there was play acting like she was his mother, and he was in the fetal position, playing out his fantasy of being a little boy again, curled up in her arms, getting the love of a mother that he felt like he hadn't been getting from Alicent his whole life. Alys Rivers wakes him, and when he says that Aegon was dragging him down into the dark, that sounds like foreshadowing for the battle over the God's Eye and falling into the lake, drowning in its depths, which Daemon also experienced in one of his Weirwood visions. There are a couple different references to the battle over the God's Eye from the books in this episode from a couple different characters. When she says it's the dream again, implying he's had the same dream before while here, like days have gone by, he's had multiple Weirwood dreams, but a lot of it seems like it's centered around Aegon and Aemond's own childhood trauma. Alys Rivers does her own little mommy play with him. He goes into the fetal position again, and he tells her about Helena's prophecy when she literally said that he would die swallowed up by the God's Eye during Season 2. He literally calls her mother, and she starts humming a song to him like a mother would. Alys Rivers has also probably seen all the same Weirwood visions that Daemon and Helaena have seen too, so probably understands what he means when he says that Helaena told him about his future dying over the God's Eye. I really love the way they transition with her song humming and to the Red Keep too, making it sound like her song is carrying all the way to the Red Keep, but I don't think that's the actual case. We then see Maester Orwyle taking the moon tea to Alicent to give to Helaena to try and terminate her pregnancy. While he's on his way there, we see them releasing tons of cats all over the castle to get rid of the rats, so Rhaenyra took Alan of Hull up on his idea of using cats to get rid of their rat problem. One of the serving girls spots him going to Alicent's chambers with the moon tea, and I think is the person that told Mysaria, one of her little birds, so to speak, because she is Mistress of Whispers, who then winds up using lady problems, like blanket lady problems, as an excuse to get past the guards, which I did think was kind of funny. Like, do you want to know about the lady problems? And apparently the guards at the Red Keep don't want to know about the lady problems. Alicent calls him a friend, but he's not disloyal to Rhaenyra and says from now on he'll need to inform Rhaenyra of anything that he does for Alicent because he's not trying to hedge his bets or like play the greens against the blacks or anything like that. Like he's just trying to be a good maester and not get killed. Helaena knows instantly what's up with the moon tea, probably because she saw it in a vision like, oh, I saw this coming a mile away. And part of the idea here is that Alicent thinks it's the only way to save Helaena and her daughter Jaehaera is to just terminate the pregnancy because it could be a boy, and I think we're all on the same page here that it's meant to be Maelor from the books. There was some early trailer footage too that made it seem like she was giving birth to someone, so we will probably see that metaphorically and literally come to a head by the end of this season. We will literally see the head of Maelor at some point. George R. Martin will be so happy.
Well, funny you should ask. Let me get my map.
Helaena also says she's seen visions of Aemond at Harrenhal still, and when she says he burns but without fire, I think that's just a reference to his Weirwood nightmares driving him mad, like his soul is burning metaphorically. Alicent even tries to force the moon tea on her and admits to Helaena that she used the moon tea before herself, saved her from disgrace, thank you very much Criston Cole, and big coincidence, when she says that Rhaenyra also used it too when she was a girl to save her from disgrace, it was also Criston Cole that time too. This is a really big episode for Criston Cole for a number of different reasons. Helaena refuses to get rid of the baby, and the way that Fia Saban, the actress who plays Helaena, talks about it's because she feels so powerless at the moment, and it's also because her son Jaehaerys, who she lost to blood and cheese, so she feels like this baby is the one thing that just belongs to her and nobody else, so that nobody is going to be able to take it from her. And it's also the reason why she hid the pregnancy from Alicent until recently, and also probably saw this happening in one of her visions like, oh, my mother is going to make me try and get rid of this pregnancy, which I don't want to do. Rhaenyra then tries to smooth things over with Lady Frey by giving her a seat on the small council as payment for helping the Winter Wolves get past the twins to join the Rivermen in their army, and as they mentioned, originally she was supposed to give them Harrenhal as promised by Jace, who is dead now, so Rhaenyra claiming that that makes the deal void because she wants to give Harrenhal to whoever brings her Aemond's head, and she is obsessed in this episode with finding Aemond and Vhagar, much to the distraction of all the problems in the city, which Daemon says take way more precedent, like we need to deal with the problems at home before we worried about Aemond. But Rhaenyra does not want to hear any of that. She just wants Aemond and Vhagar. That's all she cares about right now. Adam of Hull and Baela have been looking for Vhagar and Aemond and think that they've found Vhagar in a Wendish town on the outskirts of Harrenhal, like not too far away. Everybody just getting closer and closer to learning that Aemond is still at Harrenhal. They have a little funny moment where Daemon gets kind of pissed at Torrhen Manderly, who's gossiping with Lady Frey, catching her up on the new small council, and just like this disparate group of people, like all these weird people that have come together from different walks of life, and they're kind of slighting them, making fun of all of them, because they think that they're a little bit better. So Daemon notices this and just seems like he's staring daggers at Torrhen Manderly. He then mentions the rising problems in the city and the Gold Cloaks being murdered, who we actually find Ormund Hightower is actually behind. But the way he's doing this plot is he's making it seem like the small folk are really behind it, going after Rhaenyra for revenge for busting their heads because of that graffiti about the bastards. And now I kind of think that Ormund Hightower orchestrated the graffiti too, and it was all part of this grand plot to sow more dissension inside the city and destabilize Rhaenyra. And it seems like it's really working by the end of this episode, like Ormund Hightower is really doing a good job of that. We get another teaser for the battle over the God's Eye between Aemond and Daemon when Rhaenyra says, I'm going to send Daemon after Aemond to find him wherever he's hiding out. But then Daemon says, no, we need to deal with the problems in the city before I go do that. So even though everybody's hyped to see the battle over the God's Eye, a really big event from the books, I still think they're going to push that to season 4. Like, this is them basically telling you, like, no, there's a bunch of stuff happening this season. We'll deal with battle over the God's Eye next season. Also because they want to keep Matt Smith on the show as long as possible, and Aemond's actor as well, too. Daemon then correctly points out that Rhaenyra is obsessed more with revenge and not to worry about Aemond, who's scared out of his wits at the moment, which is right on the money. And wanting revenge also feels like a callback to Sheepstealer and the Rhaena subplot too, which we'll pick back up with next week's episode, but also wanting to delay that as possible, hoping that Rhaenyra probably will give up on Sheepstealer because Daemon is now keeping that secret from her. Maybe if we push off revenge for your son's death long enough, you'll slowly forget about it a little bit. He is also correct to point out that the small folk and the nobles both kind of hate Rhaenyra right now because of what the Gold Cloaks did to them recently, and the Rat Feast also recently.
There is a disturbance in your city, and you, yourself, are its likely cause.
They talk about this a little bit more later in the episode in the Sept when Daemon and her start talking in High Valyrian and she starts venting to him basically about how paranoid she's getting, all the plots within and without, all these different problems crushing her under their weight, and she's really starting to have some psychological problems, and it's driving her to make a lot of bad decisions too, and it's probably only going to get worse from here on out. Earlier in the episode here, though, Daemon also points out that Rhaenyra shouldn't be worried about threats to her legitimacy, the talk of bastards, because it doesn't matter if her sons are bastards or not. The fact that she has dragons is the highest form of legitimacy, and it's all about power to him, and they have the most dragons right now, which is also a metaphor, like a parallel for what happened between Ormund and Daeron's conversation over the Savast set, all about Aegon's conquest and them trying to conquer Dorne. Speaking of bastards, Joffrey comes back from the Vale, but she doesn't want to see him immediately, maybe because she's still dealing with the trauma of losing Jace, and seeing Joffrey is just too much for her right now, like too many emotions swirling around and too many problems that she has to deal with on a day-to-day basis, so she's just trying to put that off as long as possible. Back at Rooks Rest, Aegon tries to take off after Aemond, thinking to go and kill him and find Vhagar, who he heard is on the outskirts of Harrenhal. He blames all of his problems and miseries on Aemond swearing to kill him or die in the attempt, and Larys Strong really seems like he's at wit's end, like he's just about had it with Aegon, and tries to keep thinking of ways to get him to do what he wants, because he still wants him to go to the east and hide out until they can prepare for him to rally. Back in the Red Keep, Mysaria learns about the moon tea pretty quickly. Alicent tries to hide it, then play it off like it was really for her, and drinks it right in front of her. Drinking it when you're not pregnant doesn't really do anything. It just tastes really bad. Probably gave her a bit of a stomachache. She tries to get Alicent to tell her who her lover was, so apparently Mysaria doesn't know that it was Criston Cole. It feels like that's something that Mysaria would learn. And they have a bit of a stalemate moment where Game recognizes Game, and Alicent throws back in her face that she knows that Mysaria was a lover with Rhaenyra up until recently. Like, yeah, you kind of have this thing for Rhaenyra, but she's always going to pick Daemon, and tries to play them against each other. Like, why don't you help us instead of Rhaenyra? Why don't you play the Greens against the Blacks just because you don't know who's going to come out on top? And Rhaenyra is always going to favor Daemon over you. Like, she's going to throw you under the bus if it means saving Daemon. For the most part, it seems like Mysaria is still loyal to Rhaenyra, but we'll see if there's any kind of subterfuge or subplots that Mysaria has going on by the end of the season, like if she tries to hedge her bets too, the same way that Larys Strong also seemed like he did. We go back to Criston Cole's forces, and Gwaine Hightower is talking to Criston Cole about the Hightower in Old Town in his childhood growing up with Gwaine Hightower, who was his cousin. He tells the story of the game that they would play, racing to see who could make it to the top of the Hightower first, to see who could see the sunrise first, and how he'd always let Ormund win because he sucked, like he was a total crap bag. And that might be to foreshadow what Ormund might be like in actual full-pitch battle later this season, like if his bark is worse than his bite. They've been making him seem pretty terrible, but we'll see what happens when dragons show up and fire starts getting spit all over the place. And Gwaine basically offers Criston Cole sanctuary to become a house knight for the Hightowers after the dance is over, regardless of who wins or loses the dance, because Criston Cole earlier had claimed that he had nothing left if the Greens lost the war. But much to his chagrin, we find out that Criston Cole never planned to go anywhere after this because he plans to die in the attempt to stop the Rivermen. He doesn't think that there's anything for this after. Like he wants to die on his own terms. But it takes Gwaine the rest of the episode to actually figure that out. So earlier on here, all these different scenes, I think it's Gwaine Hightower just slowly trying to butter up Criston Cole so that he will agree to abandon their current goal and go to Tumbleton and join Ormond and the rest of the Greens, but we find that that's not going to happen. All their horses are disabled and they're forced to kill them because of the traps set by the Winter Wolves, meaning that they are now behind them and they have to go the rest of the way on foot, just showing you over this montage the rest of the episode that things get worse and worse for Criston Cole's men, to the point where it seems like by the end of the episode they're down to like half or less of their original group. Back at King's Landing, Daemon chides Luther Largent and the Goldcloaks for their brutalism, who then points out correctly that Daemon was the one who trained them to be so brutal in the past. When he mentions his men haven't been paid in a while, they're getting restless, he also mentions Daemon's old name as the Prince of Fleabottom, which is the name he was given when he was younger and captain of the Goldcloaks because he spent so much time in Fleabottom, both having fun in the pleasure dens, but also knocking heads as the captain of the Goldcloaks. They wind up finding a couple more Goldcloaks murdered by the small folk, but we find it was actually Ormond Hightower behind it who just hired people to kill the Goldcloaks, making it seem like it's the small folk so that it seems like there's a conspiracy in King's Landing against her so that she gets even more paranoid, basically sowing as much chaos as possible. We then meet Ormond Hightower's contact in the city, who's just informing him using a carrier pigeon, "Look, your plan's going fine, we've killed some Goldcloaks, the account is open, please keep paying us money to kill more Goldcloaks." Ormond then says in Tumbleton they're going to conscript more locals for their army to fight against Daemon's army, meaning that more of Rhaenyra loyalists will be forced to fight against Daemon's army, making things look even worse for her if they all get killed in the battle, which they probably will. He then uses the Savas set, which is like a chess set from the East in the Game of Thrones universe. It didn't come over till a little bit later in the actual book timeline, so this is like them moving things up a little bit, but it still looks really cool, so I'm happy to see it show up in the show. And it's basically Ormond teaching Daeron how to play chess, so to speak, like the Game of Thrones version of chess, and using that as a metaphor for battle tactics. Also with a really big history lesson on Aegon's conquest. There's a lot of talk of Aegon's conquest during House of the Dragon because we're not that far removed from Aegon's conquest, but also HBO announced they're going to be doing an Aegon's conquest movie, possibly 3 movies, like big Dune-sized movies. Dune was the metaphor that they went for, so we'll see what ends up happening with that the next couple of years. It's probably going to be at least 2 or 3 years before we hear a lot more about that and actually see the movie. There are a couple funny moments here during their conversation too, where Ormond gets kind of offended when Daeron calls the Hightower history is boring and the Targaryen ones not so much. It kind of seems like Ormond is dedicated to erasing as much of Daeron's Targaryen nature and learning as possible. Like he's trying to deprogram all the Targaryen out of him. Daeron mentions his history lessons into the history of House Hightower and talks about some of their past battles with House Greyjoy, House Peake, Osgrey, House Gardner, who used to rule over the Reach before Aegon's conquest. A lot of those battles were big ones that happened before Aegon's conquest. Then he mentions House Dane of Dorne and then starts talking about Aegon's actual conquest. So I think the things that he was mentioning were meant to be linear in the timeline, like this happened, and then eventually Aegon's conquest. With a really big tutorial on Miriam Martell, the Yellow Toad of Dorne, who he seems like he admires very much, but also spends a lot of time making fun of for the way she actually looks. All of his speech here is basically just stuff out of the Fire and Blood book, the history of Aegon's conquest as it went down, and how they failed to conquer Dorne because of all the different battle tactics they were using, and how the terrain was so different. The type of warfare that they needed to fight in Dorne was so different from the rest of the other 6 kingdoms, and that's why it didn't work. We need desert power, we need worm power, dragons won't work as well. This is why I like all the Dune metaphors people have been using for this Aegon's conquest movie. Mary Martell withstanding Aegon's conquest is meant to be a metaphor for Ormond trying to withstand Rhaenyra in the Blacks and Daemon's army, though. But I really love the moment here where Daeron actually beats him on the Savas game using the giant dragon piece, completely dumbfounded, like he stops dead in his tracks and almost seems like he's going to have a hissy fit again. And it's meant to be another metaphor for Ormund's recent speech because he said that Targaryens won the war of conquest, Aegon won because dragons and strength, and he had a giant dragon, and Daeron just beat him in his own game with a giant dragon piece, implying, possible omen that the Blacks are going to win this fight against Tumbleton because of their big dragons. So it's basically Daemon negating Ormund's big, long, elaborate speech here with one simple move, like dragon beats everything. Absolutely love the way James Norton, the actor who plays Ormund, just switches on a dime, going from like really crazy to really calm at the same time, and then shows Daeron the gold coin with his face stamped on it, saying, I'm going to put these into circulation as soon as we put you on the Iron Throne. Alicent then finds Helaena in the Godswood teaching Jaehaera about Nightshade. Don't eat it, it's deadly. I wonder if this is foreshadowing for something in the future. Like, this is never... Anytime Helaena does something, you wonder if it's foreshadowing for some future event, because she just speaks the future randomly. But Alicent tries to get Helaena to escape King's Landing as their only next solution, and she gives the necklace that she had to a maid to help them. And as Helaena notes, they're going to use the same secret tunnels that Blood and Cheese used to kill Jaehaera's, her other baby. There's a lot of talk about going through Baela's room to get to the secret tunnels, who's going to be out hunting Vhagar, but this all winds up going to naught because Mysaria winds up finding them immediately. Like, there's no actual subterfuge. It was kind of funny the way they played that off, too. And part of the idea here, too, is that Helaena realizes that Alicent wants her to leave Jaehaera, her daughter. Like, no, just forget about her. She'll be fine here at the castle. No way Rhaenyra is going to kill her. Wink, wink, as she looks away. And Helaena instantly clocks that she's lying. Like, I can always tell when you're looking away, you're not telling the truth. So basically, Alicent is only trying to save Helaena here and doesn't really care about any of her children, not the one she's pregnant with, and not her other child who's still alive. Alicent is not going to win any Mother of the Year awards anytime soon. There's a lot of talk about this, too, with Aemond's whole storyline at Harrenhal. We'll get to that in a second. We get a little moment with Adam of Hull and Baela finding more of Vhagar's footprints nearby Harrenhal, who's still nowhere to be found. She talks about her guilt over Jace's death and how Rhaenyra kind of hates her right now and she wants to redeem herself by finding Vhagar. And they try to make it seem like there's maybe a little ship between Adam and Baela, like they're either good friends right now, maybe this might turn into something else in the future. We will see where this goes. Back in Harrenhal, though, Aemond dreams of Vhagar, and Alys Rivers is still sitting over his bed with some needlepoint. You can let me know what you think she's weaving. She also implies that Vhagar left because she was afraid, maybe of the ghosts of Harrenhal or something to do with the old gods or the three-eyed raven. I don't think I've ever heard of the dragons ever being afraid of the God's Eye area, but maybe also Vhagar senses that she's going to die too around the God's Eye, and that's why she's afraid. Like, she's afraid of dying just as much as Aemond is afraid of dying too. Dragons are very magical creatures. It's possible that Vhagar has sensed some version of her future too. Do dragons actually have dragon dreams? You can let me know in the comments. George R. Martin has never mentioned anything about that. Aegon crumples, thinking himself weak, and Alys Rivers reminds him that Rhaenyra has taken King's Landing, and she implies Aegon might still be alive, and now Rhaenyra is coming for him. He talks about his past childhood trauma. He worshipped Aegon, but tormented him as a child, and how Alicent didn't love him and loved Aegon more, which is kind of ironic because during Aegon's storyline, he says the same thing about Aemond, like, my mother didn't love me, she loved Aemond way more, which they just both think that the mother loved the other child more. Alys Rivers implies that she had a child once who may have died, and it kind of seems like they're setting up a surrogate mother-child relationship between the two of them, not like a husband-wife romantic kind of relationship like people thought based on the books. So it's more of him being a surrogate son to her and her being a surrogate mother to him. Aemond isn't looking for romantic love, he's looking for the love of a mother. Aegon then reaches their former cart and talks about his past childhood trauma with Aemond and how Viserys withdrew him from the tourneys when he was young, but let Aemond compete, and Aegon was forced to applaud him. I think the reality there is that he wasn't allowed to compete because he was the crown prince, and they don't want the crown prince being hurt, not because he was incompetent, which is what Aegon thought, like, oh, he didn't let me fight because he didn't think I would win, thought I would fall off his horse. But no, it's just protocol that you don't let the crown prince actually fight in a tournament. We all literally just watched Night of the Seven Kingdoms. It's why you don't put the person who's next in line for the Iron Throne and let them fight in an actual tournament, because they could die. Larys Strong really picks up on the irony here with Aegon's complaints and basically tells him straight that he's a rich boy who had every advantage and has no cause to whine, and gives him the tough love that he's been needing for the last couple of seasons. Basically telling him the truth, you were a terrible king and you're an even terrible man right now. Like, he just feels like Aegon needs to hear this, and that's the right thing to do in order to push him the way that he wants him to go. And also reminds him that Larys Strong grew up being the disabled son that his father did not love, like the less loved son that the rest of the realm also made fun of because of his deformity. So like all the things that Aegon is complaining now, Larys Strong experienced his entire life, whereas Aegon is just now kind of waking up to this reality in his current state. Then we get another really cool scene of Daemon and Rhaenyra talking to each other in High Valyrian, but it goes on for a very long time, like it's a very long conversation, with mostly her venting about all the different conspiracies against her in King's Landing and outside of King's Landing. They make a couple of jokes about Daemon thinking that they don't need an actual High Septon, like we don't need to deal with any of this, like maybe we should just kill this guy and be rid of it. Then also Daemon trying to get her to chill out a little bit about the conspiracy talk, not be so worried about the small stuff, like don't sweat the small stuff, there are bigger problems we need to solve right now, but she doesn't want to hear any of that. She's so worried and crushed by the weight of all these different problems, it's starting to drive her in a very unhealthy direction, make very, very bad choices. When Aegon and Larys Strong return to Rooks Rest, he gives up basically telling Larys Strong to hire a ship to take them east. Like, okay, fine, I'll do whatever you want to do. We'll go wherever you want to go. Until they are surprised by Tywin Lannister, who survived the Battle of the Gullet and was able to swim to shore and make it to Rooks Rest. He and Larys Strong try to plan Aegon's escape, and Tywin Lannister tries to talk them out of going to the east. Like, look, I've been there to the east. It's a terrible place. Aegon's never going to survive there. He's going to hate it, and implies that he slept with all of Lohar's wives. That was one of the big jokes at the end of Season 2, is that Lohar's like, this is great. You'll sleep with all my wives, impregnate all of them, and it implies that he did do that. So somewhere in the east, he has a bunch of little kids running around. And Tywin Lannister really wants them to go to Casterly Rock to rally their forces because the Lannisters are loyal to the Greens, but also Larys Strong is worried that he's trying to hedge his bets and move the capital of Westeros to Casterly Rock. Lannisters coveting the crown also feels like some foreshadowing for Tywin Lannister way down the road and what happens with Joffrey and those group of people during the original Game of Thrones series. We get a really quick moment while this is happening, though, where Aegon kills a random thug who discovers his crown and seems like he really, really enjoys it. Like he has this really crazy smile on his face when he sinks the knife into that dude. We get a really quick moment of Alicent and Helaena playing dress-up as maids to try and sneak out of the Red Keep, but they're caught instantly by Mysaria, who also tries to play things against Daemon and Rhaenyra. Like, no, side with us, help us escape. The Greens will actually help you the same way the Blacks will help you. You're never going to make it out alive. Talking as fast as she can, saying whatever she can to try and help Mysaria get them out of the Red Keep, and it seems like at least right now it doesn't work. We'll see if that changes later and Mysaria does choose to help them. We also get a couple of trippy scenes with Helaena where she says she wants to see the moon, like she's very determined, I must see the moon right now, which feels like foreshadowing, and her gripping the cage just being a metaphor for her current condition, being a little bird trapped in a cage. But anytime she says that she wants something or she sees something and it makes no sense, it just feels like she's speaking something that's going to happen in the future. You can let me know what you think moon is a metaphor here, like what is happening in the future that has something to do with the moon. We'll get another scene of mercenaries trying to scale the cliffs at Harrenhal and enter through the Godswood looking for Aemond. Alys Rivers tries to get them to leave. This time, Aemond acts to save her. One of them mentions Salt Wipe, so maybe he was from the Iron Islands, but it seems like they bond over this fight here, like Alys Rivers gives him a little smile after this. So they bond the same way that her and Daemon eventually did bond later in Season 2. Then we get another scene with Daemon meeting with the Gold Cloaks who want their revenge for all the Des, trying to talk some sense into them, promising them double pay once they get rid of the Greens, and then he mentions Dorne bending the knee eventually, the 7 Kingdoms growing to 9, then to 12, him talking about conquering the East Realms too is what he means, is then the new Valyria as he mints it, which is also what he was talking to Rhaenyra about a couple episodes again too. Like, why don't we use our dragons and our strength to conquer the entire known world?
Become the new Valyria!
Daemon's got a lot of real big plans, but you're gonna have to solve a lot of problems here at home before they start trying to conquer the rest of the world. And when we go back to Criston Cole's men, they get close to Stony Step, but find that the Rivermen have passed them and burned the bridge, and they can no longer, there's like no hope that they'll catch up to them and be able to stop them. So the mission has failed, and Gwaine Hightower's like, great, we can all go to Tumbleton now. We can quit, and we can go where I wanted us to go before. It's all done. We're all fine now. But much to his chagrin, Criston Cole wants to hear none of it. He wants to die in the attempt to stop the Rivermen, pretty much assured that he will, like, oh, I'm definitely going to die doing this, but it's my plan to die, and I want to die on my own terms. And you kind of see Gwaine Hightower slink off into the distance, like he just basically yeets out, like, nope, I've had enough of this. I'm not going to die with you during this. This is crazy. I'm going to go to Tumbleton. I'll see you guys later, maybe, if any of you survive. But it's basically Criston Cole telling you how his season is going to end up, like he plans to die this season. While this is going on, Daemon and Luther Largent torture one of the people that Ormund had hired to orchestrate these things against the Goldcloaks, killing them, claiming that he was the only person killing them. That's not true. There were a number of people that Ormund probably hired to do this, but Ormund probably threatened his family's life and paid him a lot of money to take this all on himself. Like, if you get caught, just tell him that you're the only guy. And also reveals that he has crowned Daeron king, or he plans to crown him king, and minted gold with his face on it, which he then gives to Rhaenyra later, pissing her off as well. Like, what the hell is this? But part of the idea now is that Daemon really wants Daeron's head, when actually it's Ormund Hightower who's behind all this, and Daeron is just his puppet. While that's going on, Alan of Hull was also having a meeting with Rhaenyra talking about rebuilding the Valyrian fleet at Driftmark because they have almost no forces right now after the Battle of the Gullet. In the book that Rhaenyra is looking at, seems like a ledger, like their realm's finances and resources they have right now. It also kind of feels like Daemon giving her the coin with Daeron's head on it is a metaphor for the missing crown gold that they're still looking for. Like, oh, we found what the Greens did with our gold, they just put Daeron's face on all of it. And they end the episode with this montage of Helaena discovering the secret passageways inside the Red Keep that we saw Rhaenyra and Daemon using in Season 1 and Blood and Cheese using in Season 2, and they figure out they can use it to escape, which they try, while Criston Cole is giving this big speech about the blessing of the seven, using the 7 different gods as metaphors for the action of the different scenes that they step through each of them. Both Alicent and Helaena trying to escape, and Daemon finding the rest of the Goldcloaks murdered by Ormund Hightower's men. That's who killed these people, if you're wondering. Basically the people that Ormund hired. The graffiti in blood, A Feast for Traitors, also feels like a sly nod to the book title, A Feast for Crows. And I love the way Criston Cole ends on the line about the stranger, the aspect of death, the offering of rest as they go out on all these dead men, the Goldcloaks. So RIP to all of them. But generally this week also still felt like more table setting for like real big battles that are going to happen, like Butcher's Ball probably next week, and then episode 7, the Battle of Tumbleton, and then the finale episode after that. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and let me know if you spotted any Easter eggs or references in the episode that I didn't talk about during the video. My episode 6 trailer video will post next, and my full episode 6 video will post next week after they release it, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Everybody click here for that video, update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my other House of the Dragon episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.